Hi, welcome to Basic Math. Today we're looking at percents, decimals, and fractions. So this is going to be our first real foray into percents. The word percent literally means out of 100. So anytime you have a percent, in this case I wrote down 79%, if you want to change it to a fraction, because of what it means, it just becomes 79 out of 100. It turns itself right into a fraction, which is very, very nice. So this is our percent symbol. You've probably seen that before, and it just means, hey, this is a number that is out of 100. So I did one more example over here of turning a percent into a fraction, and maybe we'll see some more in just a little bit that are just a little bit harder. But 80% is 80 over 100, but this time we need to reduce our fraction. Okay, the last one, 79 over 100, did not reduce, but this one will. So I divided both the top and the bottom by 20, and my fraction went down to 4/5. So 80% is the ratio, 4 to 5. All right, so let's go ahead and keep going. We are going to be looking at more stuff here. We're going to look at how to change percents into decimals, how to change decimals into percents, and then we'll probably circle back to the fractions. So buckle up, this one's going to be fun. All right, so next up, we're going to look at changing percents to decimals. So to change a percent into a decimal, all we're going to do is find a decimal point and move it 2 places to the left. After that, the only other thing you have to do is drop the percent sign. So I have a couple of examples, or 3 examples. First one is 35%. Now, one thing we have to be careful of is, with 35%, where is the decimal point? Because it's not there. So you can always add a decimal point at the end of a number. So it's 35 point percent, 0.0 if you really want. And so all I did was I took this decimal point, I just slid it 2 places to the left to get 0.35. And that's it. And notice that since 35% means 35 out of 100, we now have 35 hundredths, right? The 5 is in the hundredths place, and so it's exactly the same number then. My second example, 7.2%. This time I had a decimal point. So when I tried to slide this one though, watch what happens. I move it 1 place and then I ran out of numbers. So if you run out of numbers, just go ahead and add a 0 in front and then you can move it 1 more place. And so you can see it's right there. I ended up with 0.072%, or I'm sorry, just 0.072. It's, you can either have the 0 in front or not. It doesn't really matter. But there we go, it's a decimal. And finally, 175%. Again, this one doesn't have a decimal point in it, so it's all the way at the end. I slide it 2 places to the left, and that gives me a decimal number of 1.75. Notice this one is bigger than 1, right? These both would have had zeros in front of them. This one has a 1. That's because this is more than 100%, so it's more than a whole. And so there we go. That's changing percents to decimals. Let's go the other way. All right, so now decimals to percents. This is the exact opposite of what we just did. Instead of moving our decimal point to the left, we're going to move it to the right. Instead of removing the percent sign, we're going to put it in. So move the decimal point right 2 places and add a percent sign. Here we go. 0.3. I need to move it left. I need to move it right 2 places. But notice again, just like in some of those examples we did just a minute ago, I only have 1 place to move it. So in order to move it that second spot, we have to add a 0, which gets us to 30%. So the decimal is really hiding back here again. We don't generally write it if it's at the end of a number and there's nothing after it, but you can. My 1.89, again, the decimal slides 2 places to the left, or to the right, and we get 189%. And for 0.004, this one slides 2 places to the right, leaving us with a percent that still has a decimal in it, and that's okay. So that's percents and decimals. It's really, really nice going back and forth between those two because all you're going to do is move your decimal point to the left or to the right, depending on which way you're going. So just remember, percents always look bigger than their decimal equivalents. So if you're trying to make something into a percent, move it right. If you're trying to make something into a decimal, move it left. And that'll work. All right, let's go back to fractions because we have more to do there. All right, fractions to percents. All we're going to do, we're going to divide. And once we divide, the division is going to turn our fraction into a decimal. And then we just follow the rules for changing a decimal into a percent. So then we move the decimal point right 2 places and add a percent sign. So just like this one, 3/8. 3/8 is ends up being 0.375. You can see I did the division down here. Please remember, your denominator goes outside the box and the numerator goes inside the box. So I did the division, and when I did, I got 0.375. All I did at that point was I took my decimal point and moved it 2 places to the right, giving me 37.5%. So there we go. All right, let's see what's left. Some weird ones with fractions. This will be good. Here we go. All right, this will be our last board for fractions, percents, and decimals. 2 kind of strange problems. First, let's write 37.2% as a fraction. So this one's a little bit weirder because this time my percent has a decimal in it, and we want to change this thing into a fraction. So I'm going to start by saying, hey, I know a percent means it is out of 100. So that's the very first thing I did. I took this weird decimal and I just put it over 100 because that's what it means to be a percent. It's always out of 100. But then I'm going to take advantage of the fact that if I I don't want the decimal place. So I need to move that decimal point 1 place to the right. But if I do that on the top, I have to do it the same thing on the bottom. So I'm going to add a 0, a decimal point and a 0 on the bottom, and slide it 1 place to the right. So this ends up being 372 over 1,000. Basically, however many decimal places you have, that's how many extra zeros you're going to need. So you can probably get pretty good at going straight from the percent to this fraction, but it doesn't hurt to put it over 100 first and then slide your decimal points. In this case, the fraction does reduce, so I divided the top and the bottom by 4, giving us the fraction 93 over 250. Finally, let's write 10 1/3% as a fraction. Now, this one's just mean. There's nothing terribly nice about this. You could change a third to a decimal, except that 1/3 as a decimal is 0.333333333, and it just keeps going forever. So if this were a nicer fraction, like a half, you could write it as 10.5, but with a third, we're going to need a different method. So I start it the same way I did the last one. I take my 10 1/3 and I put it over 100. But now what I really have here is a division problem. It is 10 1/3 divided by 100. And so you can see I brought it over here. I changed my 10 1/3 into an improper fraction. Remember, 3 times 10 is 30, plus the 1 on top makes 31 over 3. And now I wrote it as a division problem, 31 over 3 divided by 100. When we divide with fractions, we flip the second number. So remember, 100 is the same as 100 over 1. And so when I flip it, I get 1 over 100. And then I just multiply straight across. 31 times 1 is 31. 3 times 100 is 300. And that's our fraction. Reduce it if you can, but you're not going to reduce this one. So there you go. That's how to take a percent that has a fraction in it and change it to a fraction, which is a lot of fun. So have a good day. Thanks.